if 90% of the traders who start trading lose all their money within the first 90 days, is there any hope of success? Great news in today's video because we show you how to avoid these landmines. So first of all, what is the rule of 90 and why does it even matter? That's a question for both of us to answer.
Rule of 90, why it matters. I think it's a shattering blow to somebody trying to get started. And it says if you have not done your proper homework, it kind of destroys your ego.
Yeah, it can. It can lead a person to, I think, a lot of strong frustration. We're going to take a look at some of the other factors that go into it. And I think one of the things is I think majority of traders, I think it's human nature to think, well, yeah, but that doesn't apply to me. I mean, I know I've made decisions in my lifetime that were bad decisions, but I justified them by saying,
Yeah, but that doesn't apply to me. I'm too good for that, or I'm too bright for that, and all that kind of stuff.
the second question that we'll take a look at here is how do emotional factors like FOMO or overconfidence affect new traders in a negative way?
The overconfidence, I think my thinking has been on it. I did some research on it. The most people who fail in this thing easily are the, believe it or not, people who have engineering mind. They think they got it all figured out. There is a cause and effect relationship on everything. And when they enter the stock market, that thing kind of evaporates because of the emotional and psychological impacts that's driven by this mass. Stock market is driven by mass psychology. And if you don't pay attention to that, it can get you.
Yeah, I agree with that. The aspect of that overconfidence, and I am an engineer, and so I can talk bad about engineers, but engineers have a tendency to try to fix things or improve things or reinvent the wheel when the wheel doesn't need to be reinvented. And that's especially true for trading. Hey, taking a test flight with the autopilot trading system. It's a great service and mentoring service. And so I encourage you to check it out. It's a value about $1,700 per month, but you can test drive it for approximately $95 per month. Go for 3 months and see how, and you do want to do it before the increase. There'll be a link down in the description. And George says, where does market sentiment to you both collide with technical analysis? We'll talk about that shortly. One of the things when I was first starting to learn how to trade is the aspect of what goes on with emotions. And I didn't even realize that I had some deep seated emotions about money that impacted my decision making in trading, therefore making me suspect or susceptible to making impulsive, compulsive, and all that kind of type of trades. And then on the aspect of overconfidence, and I think you hit on it, oftentimes people who have been really, really successful in other areas of life, career wise, relationship wise, they come into trading thinking, how hard could it be? I've been successful in A, B, C, D. And so, now, of course, I'm going to be successful here. And let me share something with everybody just really quick. Okay. I used to fly jets off of aircraft carriers, right? Learning how to trade and controlling my emotions has been more difficult than learning how to fly jets off an aircraft carrier. And basically, you can take that to the bank. The next question is, can following the herd be detrimental to your trading success? And what the heck is following the herd mean anyway? Go ahead.
Following the herd is where the market is moving. And some of the detriment comes is when the market is really moving up. And sometimes you don't, and I talked about it, I think, a couple of weeks ago, is the recency bias that comes in. The market was going down and oh, it's going up. It can't be true. And then all of a sudden you find out it's really true. and you try to get in, and then it takes a temporary dive the other way and it shatters your ego. So following the herd could be okay if you have a sound system that giving you proper indication of what's really happening.
Yes, I agree with that. And yeah, social media these days, you go over to Twitter, you go over to or X, you go over to Instagram and all that kind of stuff. There's always somebody over there. It's the Lamborghini guy. I call him the Lamborghini guy. He's over there talking about, I just made 1,000% on such and such a trade, but he doesn't talk about his system. And that was just one trade. His body of work is questionable and suspect. I don't care how many snazzy pictures you take of a Lamborghini or whatever, it doesn't make you a great trader. Following the herd can be detrimental. It reminds me of the experiment that was done by, I think it was a French scientist with processional caterpillars. He put the processional caterpillars along the rim of a flower pot. And he kept putting them on there, and the processional caterpillars, what they do is they follow each other. They basically go just, follow each other, and he got enough on the rim so that it was totally filled with processional caterpillars, and in the middle of the flower pot was their favorite food. Their habits were so strong to follow the leader that they just kept going around in a circle, around in a circle, around in a circle until they all got tired and or hungry, and they finally either died from exhaustion or died for hunger. So I tell you that story to just share with everybody. Sometimes it's okay to just to get out of line and take a look to make sure you're going in the right direction. So, what steps can new traders take to avoid common pitfalls regarding the rule of 90? Anil?
I think my new revelation, relatively new, I would say, is to have focus on the process and in your face performance review. And there I come back to Mark Minervini and talks about expectancy and the batting average and risk reward ratio. And you got to have it all the time and you got to know where you are. That's the one going to tell you process wise where you are. And if you need to make some improvement, you can start making is what you measure gets improved.
I agree wholeheartedly. Both you and I both sat under Deming uh, for classes back in the day, and that's one of the things that I took away from him. Part of my input on this is just the recognition that you need a plan. And if anybody comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to start trading," they're all excited, all that kind of stuff. I basically give them 2 books. I don't give it to them. I let them buy them and use my Amazon affiliate number. No, what I do is I basically say, read my book, Trade Your Way to Freedom. And then also I would say, read Bill O'Neill's book, How to Make Money in Stocks. When you finish those books, come back and see me and we can talk. At least that gets them started. And I think increases the probability that they will not wind up in the 90% club because they'll know they need a plan. And then recognize there's 3 words that you need for your vocabulary. One of them is discipline. The next one is will. And the third one is just the dedication to stick with it through to the end. So what can we do, Anil, to shift the new trader from being statistically more likely to fail and bring them into the 10% that are going to be successful? Just your thoughts and a couple of thoughts.
I think somewhere in our education system, we need to, and I'm talking about traders' education, emphasize the psychological parts and let the trader be aware that that is a huge impact on that thing. When I started that, I did not know that. I thought, oh, I was a super engineer and I can do design of experiments and do this and do that and I'll be okay. Not true.
That's excellent. Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly with the aspect of one of the other things that I think would help is encourage them to have a plan. But when you're discussing with a fledgling trader, is help them understand that many of the reasons called them psychological, but many of the reasons people wind up in the 90% club is because many of the basic beliefs and emotions that drive those decisions are subconscious. They don't even know what's causing them to make the decisions the way they're making them. So, anyway, good topic, Anil. So, George asked a question: Where does market sentiment to you both collide with technical analysis? Anil, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I was looking at that question, and I think it's a very interesting question. From top of my head, where I'm coming out is I think technical analysis, if you really pursue it and know it, gives you indications ahead of time, or not ahead of time, right at the time that something is changing, something is altering. Be aware of that. So, good technical analysis can alert right when you need to be alerted.
And I agree. I really have nothing else to add to that because I am also of the same belief. And to substantiate that is the stories like Darvis, who made $2 million in the market, and he was trading via telegraph or from overseas. But then there's also the aspect of just shutting down the sentiment. I really don't want to know. I don't care what the sentiment is because we can, and I've proved that to myself by doing back testing, Anil, back testing, going back in time, looking at stock charts and that type of thing. And the technicals, I know something happened to cause the price action to do what it's doing, but there's patterns to it. I just have to accept that all patterns are driven by human nature. And then it's just very simple. I don't know the why behind the crash of 2000, but dadgummit, you can see it on the chart from a mile off before it happened. Good question. Thanks, George, for asking that question. Hey guys, as we've learned today, if you're starting your trading journey without a plan and mentor, the odds are against you. It is so important to have a plan, and you don't have to reinvent the plan. You can always subscribe here to the Market Tech Talk. I put up videos on a regular basis, so you'll get really good trading tips. And if you're more serious about it, jump in on the Autopilot Trading.